Let's turn our attention now to Job chapters 15, 16, and 17. Beginning in chapter 4, we had the first cycle of Job's three friends with his answers: Eliphaz in 4, Bildad in 8, and Zophar in 11. And now in chapter 15, the second cycle, beginning with Eliphaz. Chapters 16 and 17 make up Job's response to the second speech by Eliphaz. We've been noticing a trend that the friends of Job are contesting two features in particular. The one is Job does not seem to be exhibiting wisdom. Second, Job must in some fashion be guilty, otherwise the suffering would not be befalling him. Eliphaz makes these points again, and we see them fairly quickly, particularly the wisdom in chapter 15, verse 2. Should the wise answer with windy knowledge and fill themselves with the east wind? In these lines, Eliphaz is saying to Job, you have just finished saying that you are in fact wise, and yet I'm telling you the wisdom which you claim to be uttering is empty. Also, verses 7 through 9 and following make this same point. The second topic, namely the claim that Job must be guilty in order to warrant the suffering that he's going through, can be seen in this second speech of Eliphaz, chapter 15, beginning in verse 14. What are mortals that they can be clean, or those born of woman that they can be righteous? God puts no trust even in his holy ones, and the heavens are not clean in his sight. How much less one who is abominable and corrupt, who drinks iniquity like water. So a mere mortal, no chance for innocence. He's reiterating a point that has been made earlier. Verse 20 then puts forth the principle of retribution in these words: the wicked writhe in pain all their days, through all the years that are laid up for the ruthless. Do bad, get bad. And when we come in chapter 15 to a line such as the start of verse 29, we can't help but wonder if Job felt that they were describing his own demise. Just referring to the wicked and their demise, Eliphaz says, they will not be rich, their wealth will not endure. Think of what Job has gone through in the loss of his wealth. So the equation is crystal clear in Eliphaz's mind. Job's loss of wealth traces back to some sin, some iniquity in his life, sin of which all humankind are guilty, as he said earlier in this same chapter. When Job takes up his response to Eliphaz in chapters 16 and 17, we find him beginning in 16 by responding to the emotional impact that the so-called friends are having on him. Verse 2 of chapter 16. I've heard many such things, miserable comforters are you all. Have windy words no limit? Eliphaz claimed that Job was empty of wisdom, and he's saying, you folks not only lack wisdom, but you are doing me no good at all. You're not lifting my spirits in any way whatsoever. Next, he comes to the issue of guilt or innocence, and he answers this by stating this. He doesn't so much make a claim, I'm innocent, but rather he says, what's happening to me has been something that God has chosen to do. Chapter 16, verse 7. Surely now God has worn me out. He has made desolate all my company. Verse 8. And he has shriveled me up, which is a witness against me. So he's saying this is not arising from my own wrongdoing, but it is an independent decision of a sovereign God. Notice next what we find in verses 11 and 12. God gives me up to the ungodly and casts me into the hands of the wicked. I was at ease, he broke me in two. He seized me by the neck and dashed me into pieces. He set me up as his target, and so on. This has an eerie feeling, as though Job has seen what has gone on between God and the adversary, Satan. Now, clearly he does not know, and yet this expression, God gives me up to the ungodly, casts me into the hands of the wicked, is very, very close to what has happened in the heavenlies, as God has challenged Satan to survey the various people who are diligently following God, and allows Satan to unleash his most difficult persecutions and hardships against God's chosen follower in an effort to test whether or not that person will follow God even when the perks, the benefits and rewards are stripped away. So in actuality, there's a sense in which God has, in fact, given up Job to the ungodly. But Job is not aware that this has happened. He is not aware that there's been a supernatural test, a test in the heavenlies, in which Job is the subject who will determine whether or not people are willing to follow God without immediate tangible benefit. In chapter 17, Job goes on to comment on his own feelings, his own experience at this point. Chapter 17, verse 1, my spirit is broken, my days are extinct, the grave is ready for me. And then moving towards the end of this same chapter 17, we find the theme of hope, or more particularly the theme of lack of hope, once again coming up. We saw this in Job's previous answer before the speech by Eliphaz. So in chapter 17, verse 15, where then is my hope? Who will see my hope? Will it go down to the bars of Sheol? Shall we descend together into the dust? That is my hope and I. So deep, deep sense of despair as we come to the close of Job's answer to Eliphaz's second speech.